So another one of the questions that we get asked all the time is how do I become an herbalist? And there are as many ways to become an herbalist as there are people, and so many people take many, many different paths. I can tell you a little bit about my path. And one of the things that I know that I have in common with a lot of the other herbalists that we work with and the plant lovers that we work with is that we're lifelong learners. This is just, it's not something that does got an endpoint. Um, it's something that we do and we want to continue to learn and be in relationship with the plants for the rest of our lives. I grew up in the garden with my mother, but I did not grow up learning about medicinal plants. And that's actually why we started our kids herbalism program, is to try to help expose kids to herbs at a younger age, because so many of us were disconnected from the plants. So when I was about 18 years old, I had a chance to do an internship on a medicinal plants farm, an organic medicinal plants farm that was a women's cooperative in rural Costa Rica. And so we grew herbs in community for the local community. They were sold at a local farmers market, but they were also, it was a nonprofit organization that was looking towards, like one of the goals was to have employment opportunities for rural women. It was a really, really rural village that we were working in. And so I was a volunteer. And so there was also international export that was going on with the herbs that we grew, lots and lots of different herbs. So that was my first kind of introduction into herbal growing, learning, the inner workings of actually production farming as well as medicinal plants. I first learned medicinal plants in a country that I did not ever, that wasn't where I grew up. And I fell in love. I fell in love with plants. I fell in love with people. And really that's where I found my calling as an herbalist, was like this connection between plants and people, and how we can uplift and hold each other. So I also worked at a natural food co-op, and I worked in the herbs section, and they sent me to a community-based herb school in Southern California. Most of my formal education has been at community-based herb schools, which is one of my favorite ways to more formally study herbs. So there's lots and lots and lots of community-based herb schools all over the country and all over the world, really. And so I attended one with some foundational and then more specific herbal training from somebody that was an herbal clinician, and he'd been an herbalist for like 30, 40 years at that point. And it was just based in our little small town in Southern California. A lot of folks from the community taking herb classes there, did a lot of plant walks. From there, I also had a chance to return to Costa Rica and do more of a mentorship with somebody that has been living off the grid, somebody of Afro-Costa Rican descent. And it was not formal study, right? Like this was just immersive, basically the relationship building I learned through storytelling, through just lived experience, day to day, living off the grid in the middle of a national park, actually in the southern region of Costa Rica. And I just learned from living there and in community with local folks from the region. As things came up, a lot of folks that I was living in community with I had done some study around herbs. So I was called on a lot of times for care. And a lot of the times it was first aid related, but I didn't necessarily know the plants in that specific region. So I learned a lot from local folks, what were the plants that they were using daily for bush teas, or what were things that were used for more serious applications. It's, from that region, now it's a little bit more developed, but a lot of these folks grew up in ways that there wasn't even roads connecting there. So they really needed to have serious healthcare, serious working knowledge of the plants for all kinds of whether it's digestive support or all kinds of things that would come up. Topical infections were really, really common, or fungal infections, staph, all different kinds of things. So I learned a lot from local folks there, both from the indigenous Bribri and Cape Colde communities, as well as Afro-Costa Rican communities, just through day-to-day life, through storytelling, porch sitting. And that's one of my favorite places and ways to learn. And then I also did a little bit more formal training at a clinical herbal training program that was a 3-year program here back in the United States, when I decided that I wanted to be a little bit more, gain a few more skills as far as becoming a clinician and learning to support my community members. This was in the mid-Atlantic region of the United States. I studied there for 2 years and got a lot more of an understanding of the plants finally where I was born and raised, and a lot more of the kind of clinical skills, healing presence, all different kinds of things. It was a really, really rich experience. And that was, in-depth formal study, on a very regular schedule and all the different things. So I every chance I've ever gotten. I love to go to herbal conferences. I've taken classes. Now we have the internet, which wasn't around when I first began my studies 20 years ago, taking online classes. I've studied with just a lot of amazing mentors. I've been, at Wild Ginger Herbal Center, we have been doing this work in community for 10 years, right? And we've got lots and lots of amazing teachers that we work with. So I have been so thankful to have the chance to learn through all of our programs, our community herbalism program, as well as our programs in Costa Rica and our online programs, at Chesapeake Herb Gathering that we run. I have had so many opportunities for education. It's just a constant, part of my life. And I'm really, really thankful to be able to have that chance to continue to learn and learn specifically in community. So, check out your local area. Are there local plant walks? Even walks that aren't necessarily about medicinal plants, but might be plant ID with like local natural plants. Most states have a natural plant, native plant society, and they'll lead walks that you might be able to learn. They're not going to necessarily specifically focus on medicinal plants. Maybe there's people in their local community that are offering medicinal plant walks. Maybe there's folks that are in your community that are offering mentorships, or like an herb shop that you could go. Maybe they have classes, or maybe they're looking to take on apprentices or interns. There's amazing internships around at least the United States and definitely outside there, working on medicinal plant farms. Our elders are our treasures. I highly encourage you to try to continue to, seek out opportunities to learn from our elders that have decades and decades and decades of working knowledge of plants, and a lot of whom, really generously give of their knowledge so we can continue to, pass this knowledge down through lineage. There's spiritual practices and spiritual lineages around herbs. So I encourage you to really look through your lineage and your practice to seek out, what feels like a path that is in alignment with your values and what feels like it's calling you. Lots of community-based herb schools, amazing apprenticeships and internships. And also, there's also formal programs that are at the sort of like undergraduate as well as graduate level in herbalism. So you can check those out as well. This is kind of a specific sort of paradigm working in the United States. It definitely differs depending on where you are. And there's a lot, like I said, so many different ways to be an herbalist. I always just want to uplift, like, this is folk medicine, this is folk knowledge, and we always want to hold space for all the ways there are to be an herbalist. And I'm really thankful that we don't have licensure or regulations here in the United States, because that allows space for all of the different ways that there are to be an herbalist, right? Herbalists, we're not practicing medicine. We're really supporting structure and function and working potentially in different spiritual or cultural lineages. So yeah, seek out connections. That's one of the biggest strengths that we really try to do, is to try to like continue to connect the constellation of people. And that can continue to help us sort of lead us on our path as plant people. Again, I hope that that's helpful and it gives you some ideas. One thing that I encourage you to do is reach out to somebody who's an herbalist that has inspired you, and ask them, do they have options or ideas of places that you can study? Or if you tell them your goals, and we do a lot of this work with our programs as well. What are your goals as an herbalist? And we try to connect you with opportunities that are in alignment with what you are looking for. And so reach out to people you respect, ask for different kinds of recommendations, and that can hopefully lead you to programs or people that are going to be able to help serve your needs and vice versa, that you can become in relationship with. And um, and then another resource that's free is called herbrally.com. And there's a lot of listings for educational opportunities there as well. And never forget that at Wild Ginger, we offer a lot of amazing, affordable herbal education opportunities, both online as well as in person in Maryland, as in Costa Rica. So check us out at www.wildgingerherbalcenter.com. Thank you so much. I hope this helps. And leave comments if you have questions or anything like that. Leave comments on this video. I'm happy to help.